Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Nelson, and I have been teaching for over 10 years. Today, I would like to share with you differentiated instruction. We will be talking about how differentiated instruction is defined, the rationale for embracing differentiated instruction in your classroom, teacher roles, assessments, the key elements of differentiation, some strategies you can try in your classroom, and preparing your students and parents for differentiated learning. So let's get started. First, let's talk about defining differentiated instruction. Differentiated instruction is getting to know your students and making sure each student has the type of instruction or environment he or she needs at any given moment to be a successful learner. The teacher then can develop variations for each level of student processing. Next, let's talk about the rationale for differentiated instruction. Differentiated instruction is trying to fix the one-size-fits-all mentality that used to and sometimes still exists in education and create an environment where all levels of learners can thrive. We as educators must view the environment and instruction through the eyes of our diverse learners and ask ourselves the question, does it meet each child's needs? We as the teacher must get to know our students as individuals. What are their interests, their family structure, their dislikes, cultural context, learning style, goals he or she would like to achieve, and confidence level. Each of these factors can contribute to how the student will learn. We must be acutely aware of internal and external aspects that could influence the ability of the student to retain information for understanding. Once we have this knowledge, then we can plan, build, and support strategies to differentiate the instruction for each of our students to succeed. Now, let's talk about the teacher roles within a differentiated instruction classroom. Teacher roles within differentiated instruction are to make sure the curriculum is student-centered, construct multiple approaches in delivery of content, process, and product, and make sure to build student understanding through assessment and feedback. We as educators must facilitate opportunities for our students to manage their time, space, and personal learning. We do this by effectuating high expectations, build a positive environment for learning possibilities, model joy in learning, craft multi-level routes to understanding, and promote and innovate student practice by using a choice paradigm for optimal success for each student. Now let's talk about how we approach assessments in a differentiated instruction classroom. Differentiated instruction is rooted in assessment. We must start with what the student already knows, so a pre-assessment can give us what each student already understands, what he or she needs to understand, and possible misunderstandings. At each interval, the teacher should be giving a formative assessment for feedback so the student and teacher can reevaluate the next level of resource and type of instruction needed to further their understanding. We should be allowing for use of choice in assessing students' knowledge. This can be used in formative assessments and or summative assessments. Giving students the choice in how they show you their knowledge can empower them to fully understand the information. This also gives the teacher insight as to how each student learns best. We need to help each student see how they can share their knowledge through their interests and strengths. This will give them the validation they need to help build their understanding, their confidence, and introspection. Now let's look at some key elements of differentiation. Differentiated instruction is student-centered, as we mentioned earlier. It is embedded with multiple methods of content, process, and product to reach each student, and it is rooted in assessment through choice, which we also mentioned earlier. Right now, I would like to talk about the multiple methods of content, process, and product to reach each student. The way I look at each of these elements is through what, how, and show. Content is what we are wanting our students to learn and understand. Process is figuring out how to build learning experiences by using strategies with our students in mind to create activities the student can pull understanding from. The product is planning ways the students can present or show their newfound knowledge of the subject. Using these three elements to build upon the student's knowledge will help to give each student, no matter their intelligence type, a way to engage fully in their own way with the information. Now let's delve into some differentiated instruction strategies used in the classroom. Some strategies that are great to use in a differentiated instruction classroom are choice boards. A great way to do this in lesson planning is incorporating the use of choice boards to give students a comfortable way to show their knowledge to their peers. Being able to articulate their thoughts and lessons learned is a very important skill to have. So honing that skill by having them present their knowledge the way they choose. Giving them a choice board of ideas will help them figure out what will be most comfortable for them to convey their topic understanding. Flexible seating, homework options, reading buddies, student goal setting, interest centers, or learning stations. Interest centers will not only give students a way to interpret the information in different ways, but will give them new perspectives. Interest centers can inform teaching by observing which center is of interest to which students. This will give insight as to how each student enjoys learning. Personal agendas, multi-level questions. Writing lesson plans with multi-level questions will give each learner a thought process to start their work from. We can then use the leveled questioning to build knowledge from base up. The questioning will start on a beginning assessment to give an idea of students' prior knowledge. Then work forward from there with their leveled grouping and learning activities while continuing the leveled questioning to push their abstract, analytical, creative, and divergent thought. Time differentiated activities, and then teach or remind the students of classroom procedures daily. Introducing students and parents to differentiated instruction within the classroom is very important. So let's talk about preparing the students and parents for differentiated instruction. Teachers can begin preparing students for differentiated instruction by modeling his or her strengths and weaknesses in a chart. Then have the students create a chart of things they are good at and things they need more practice in. This will help them to see that everyone has things they need to work on. Then explain what that should look like in small group work times. This is a great time for the students to come up with rules for the class to follow during work times. To introduce differentiated instruction to parents, explain that the monitoring of their students' skills will help the instruction meet their student where he or she is currently and move them on from their starting points in each subject. This will help to plan effective routes to understanding for each student. Students will get to know their learning preferences better and have much more voice and choice in the work they complete. Each student will begin to have more autonomy over their own learning and more ownership of their academic performance. Now let's talk about some personal attributes to keep in mind as you become a teacher of a differentiated instructional classroom. First, how are you sending messages to your students? We as educators send messages with our facial expressions, our body language, and through our words, voice, and inflection. We need to think about how we send messages to our students and what our messages are saying to our students. Then, be patient with your students. Being a patient teacher is one of the most important aspects of being in a differentiated instruction classroom. Patience or lack of patience is something that can permeate the entire atmosphere of a classroom. When a teacher is patient, the students feel more relaxed and willing to engage with the information. Then, teach up. We must make the effort to create lessons that are all inclusive of many different entry points. We do this by making multiple avenues to learning. Don't be afraid to have high expectations for all students. We, as the teacher, must boost our students by helping them to set goals and achieve higher engagement with information by teaching up. Giving our students enriched opportunities will only build and scaffold developmentally appropriate intelligence. Finally, give yourself grace and understanding. Giving ourselves grace and understanding to figure out what will work and what needs to be improved for our students is important. Giving our students an environment that grows with them is pivotal to their success as learners. Just remember, a developmentally appropriate, differentiated instruction classroom has never been quickly built. So give yourself that grace and understanding. These are the references that I used to build my presentation on differentiated instruction classroom for you today. I hope you all enjoyed this presentation. And remember, students who have differentiated instruction are more inquisitive, more engaged, more willing to participate, and seem to understand their important role they play in their own education.